With the Milwaukee Bucks reportedly asking for the moon in a trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, the question becomes, is Milwaukee starting to have an unrealistic price in regards to that? We also heard that Bobby Portis may be the key to finalizing and unlocking a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Isaiah Stewart's also drawing interest from contenders around the league reportedly as well. We're going to do a roundup of all the news and rumors around the NBA right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm your host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content for today, y'all. And man, we got a whole new round of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm really ready, as many of you have already talked about, for the Giannis trade saga to end. I really do hope that we get a resolution to this on draft day so we can stop talking about it, because it's going to open up a whole new can of worms come around if he's still on the Milwaukee Bucks roster after the draft day. But we're going to get into the update on Giannis. We got to talk about the Knicks. We got to talk about the Isaiah Hartenstein thing. So let's start off talking about Isaiah Hartenstein, just because we haven't really talked at all really about, like, since the offseason outlook episode for the Detroit Pistons. We just haven't talked a lot about Pistons. We have talked about, them reportedly maybe being a destination for Tyler Hero and stuff like that. But Isaiah Stewart is reportedly drawing interest from around the NBA from contenders at that could be interested in getting his services. With that, and when you look at Beef Stew and the player that he is, this is a player that can contribute without needing the ball. He's a solid defender. He does all the type of dirty work things, and he's the type of player that you can overlook when he's on a good team, but almost every good team really kind of wants a player like Isaiah Stewart, right? So reportedly, and this one does come from Brett Siegel, is that a number of contenders are interested in Isaiah Stewart this offseason, including the Spurs, as one of the teams that could be interested in him. The Bucks and the Celtics could be interested in Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, all those teams make sense for different levels. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks only make sense if they were keeping Giannis, which I don't know if that's whatever in that one, right? But with the Pistons and the reported interest in Tyler Hero, it could make some sense that they include something to be able to get Tyler Hero. Maybe the price of doing business is Isaiah Hartenstein. And this is why Isaiah Hartenstein would make sense for contenders. He brings toughness, he brings physicality, he brings defensive versatility and front court depth. On a very manageable contract as well as that. When you look at playoff teams, especially teams that are near the second tax apron, to be able to add a player like Isaiah Stewart who can do all those things while on a reasonable contract, it just makes sense, right? Like, Isaiah Stewart isn't going to necessarily win you a series alone, but he can be a big part of why, and it gives you advantage in a series with the way that he's able to play and the versatility that he brings to that front court. At only 6'8", 250 pounds, this is a dude that he averaged double-digit points last year. For the third time in his career, he averaged 5 rebounds per game as well. He shot 55% from the field and 33% from three, taking 2 threes per game, which isn't like a major volume three-point shooting, but it does help keep defenses honest, and that's really what you want in that. He also averaged a block and a half per game and almost a steal per game as well. Like, that is really solid production when it comes down to what playoff teams can look at in value. And like I said, when you have players that don't need the ball to be effective, and they don't need to have their number called a lot on the offensive side of the ball to still give you an offensive impact. Like, 10 points per game is easy to overlook, but when you add the defense that Isaiah Stewart adds, and being on a $15 million contract on this year and a team option for this upcoming year and a team option in 2027-28, it makes a lot of sense why teams could be interested in him. Now, I do think that the other side and the flip side of this is that Isaiah Stewart's limitations do matter, right? Detroit is reportedly open to move him because they need more shooting and balance on the roster. And so while Isaiah Stewart is valuable, but if a contender needs spacing, if they need offensive creation, if they need more dynamic play from a big, he just doesn't answer that. But for a team like the Boston Celtics, I think, especially depending on what they do with other moves and stuff, but he could really help that team out, adding that front court depth. He's not going to be like the big name or the wow name or the sexiest name out there on the market, but he could be a realistic piece that multiple teams could look at adding that can help them try to add some depth in the playoffs, add some toughness to their team. And I think that's a key thing. So watch out for Isaiah Stewart. He's a name that could be moved, and it could happen as soon as the 2026 draft, and we're going to see. Now let's talk about the team in the New York Knicks that actually won the NBA championship. Shout out to the Knicks. and what they were able to do and what they were able to achieve with their season and winning a title. But reportedly, well, not reportedly, we got video. This ain't reported. This is actually something that we can verify, right? Is that James Dolan claims that he'd write a big check, but he's not going to pay the second tax apron, right? He's indicated that there is an unwillingness to cross that second tax apron, which means that there could be some players that we have to move, right? Dolan said this on the radio where he says, if we could bring back the whole team exactly as it is, why wouldn't you? But I don't know if we're going to be able to. We're willing to stretch, but there's certain things in the NBA that you'd have to be suicidal to do. One of them is called the second tax apron. Cannot go into the second tax apron, but that's up to Leon Rose. So now the speculation becomes about who are some players that they can trim from that roster to keep under the second tax apron, but stay being viewed as a contender going into next year. And that's the balance. That is the cost of winning now in the NBA, is that you cannot, a lot of teams just aren't going to welcome going into that second tax apron. And I do think avoiding it does become smart, right? Like, the second tax apron is brutal. It limits your ability to trade and the financial flexibility there. It limits signings. You can lose a mid-level exception, and the flexibility that you overall lose is detrimental, right? But I do say this, on the flip side of this, champions should pay to defend their crown. And I really do believe that. Like, right, you don't win a title very often. And since we haven't had a repeat champion in the NBA for over 8 years, you know, it's difficult to not make a case, especially as Knicks fans, to keeping that team together, paying it for one season, and hell, disband it after that if it doesn't work out. But the Knicks are going to have to ask some tough questions in regards to their roster. And reportedly, there are a couple of players that they could look to move off of if to stay under that tax apron. One of those guys it makes vulnerable is Mitchell Robinson. You look at him, he is a player that is probably going to draw some interest in the open market as well, right? CBS Sports' Sam Quinn has said that Robinson's market value could begin around 15.1 million non-tax player mid-level exception, which makes some sense there. In regards to that, Quinn said this: the immediate answer here would be that it's unlikely. Regarding Robinson's chances of returning while keeping the Knicks under the second tax apron. So seems like Mitchell Robinson may be one of the first victims of the New York Knicks trying to stay under that second tax apron, and it's just the reality there. The other player that's also expected is Landry Shamet. He's a player that also is going to find himself in an interesting position as well. You also have him and Jordan Clarkson both headed towards unrestricted free agency, right? So Shamet has, it's going to be difficult to bring him back, and that's what it comes down to. So you're looking at Jordan Clarkson, Landry Shamet, Mitchell Robinson. Those are the players that are most likely to maybe not return to the New York Knicks next year if they're going to desperately try to stay under the second tax apron and keep a winning team together. And that's just something that's unavoidable, right? Like, Shamet and Mitchell Robinson becomes the most, glaring players that are probably not going to return. With Jordan Clarkson, it's a huge chance that he may not return as well for that team. And so this is a spot that not a lot of people are going to envy, and fans have to understand the business side of the cost of doing business in the NBA. Unfortunately, like fans, we always want everybody to come back, right? That's the reality of it, but it's just not going to happen. And for a player like Jordan Clarkson as well, who's 34 years old, only averaged 8.6 points per game last year. This is a former Sixth Man of the Year candidate. The first time in his NBA career he averaged less than double-digit points. He did play in 72 games last year, but only less than 18 minutes played, which again is another career low for him. So I think when you look at this, you have those players, and they're likely not to come back. So the question then becomes about, is New York going to have enough still to make a legit defense of their title next season? And here's the thing. Are they going to anyway? You got the Indiana Pacers coming back. The Boston Celtics are re-up, and the Detroit Pistons are going to take their lumps and bruises that they learned in the playoffs this year and try to be better about it. And we got to see where that's going to end up going. But overall, I say continue to monitor it, and we'll see what happens with the New York Knicks. But with that said, let's get into the Giannis thing, right? Reportedly, the Milwaukee Bucks asking price is starting to be deemed around some NBA circles as they're just asking for too much and unrealistic by many people as well when it comes down to it. This comes from Jake Fisher, of course, of the Stein line, who says this: the Bucks have found the market for Antetokounmpo to be less robust than anticipated, with the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics currently considered the most viable trade partners. Trades like the Houston Rockets, Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs, and New York Knicks have not entered the bidding. However, the Minnesota Timberwolves circled back around the Bucks to see if pairing Antetokounmpo with Anthony Edwards was plausible. So you're seeing that teams are looking at what the Milwaukee Bucks are asking. They're starting to buck back at it and basically say this may not work, right? So let's talk about both sides of this. the Bucks are right to demand everything. I want to be clear here. He's a 2-time MVP as Giannis Antetokounmpo and a player that is still a franchise-changing talent, even with the bit of the decline that he's going on. And if Milwaukee Bucks trade him, they can't just settle for a good package. They need a return that can help set their franchise up with assets in the future. That's just the reality of it, right? And the Bucks know that both the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics, if they both want him, you have to play them against each other to push the price up. That's just good business. Now, the flip side of this that the Milwaukee Bucks could be killing their own market is that, hey, I tell you this, any team trading for Giannis still has to build a championship roster around him, right? And the Milwaukee Bucks ask too much, teams can look at it and say, like we already heard over the last couple of days, both plan Bs from the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. With the Miami Heat looking around John Kawhi and the Boston Celtics looking at Trey Murphy III from the New Orleans Pelicans as a player that they can add to help bolster. It doesn't do what Giannis would do, but those are other viable options. And this is where you start seeing the posturing from the teams, right? You start seeing these teams trying to say that they have other plan Bs to get that asking price down from the Boston Celtics, right? So it seems like once again, sorry for the Milwaukee Bucks, but you seem like, again, we're all coming back to the same thing. It seems like this is a 2-team race. This is the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. And I'll say this, the Miami Heat appear to be the team with the strongest motivation to get this done, right? The Boston Celtics can look at it and say, hey, listen, even if we don't make a trade for Giannis, we still got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and we still got a proven championship core. The Miami Heat are a team that are looking at this and they're trying to get a star. They've been star chasing for so long. And because they have multiple young players, they have multiple picks, a lottery pick in this draft, and several pick swaps and future firsts that they can offer, Miami kind of has the cleanest package to get that done without needing a third team. The Boston Celtics, though, they have the biggest single player chip in Jaylen Brown. He's better than any individual player that almost any other team is going to offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And even if the Milwaukee Bucks don't want to keep Jaylen Brown, even rerouting him to a third team gets you even more assets when it comes down to it. So with the Miami Heat being the most aggressive team and the Boston Celtics having the best single asset, this is why this race can get even more messier before it gets cleaner. And that's what is going to be a part of this. But then we have another wrinkle to add towards this as well, and that is that the Milwaukee Bucks are also trying to trade Bobby Portis along in any Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, saying this is from Mark Stein. Sources say the Bucks, meanwhile, hope to attach veteran forward Bobby Portis, who has 2 seasons left on his contract, valued at slightly over $30 million. To Antetokounmpo, should a trade come to fruition, Portis fit $5.6 million salary in 2028 is a player option. So Bobby Portis, who was key to that Bucks team winning the title, wanting to come there specifically to help them win a title. I remember him selling them on that one, right? But this makes sense for the Milwaukee Bucks. You need to clean the books as much as possible. They're probably also going to look to trade Miles Turner in a separate trade as well. If the Bucks are moving towards a rebuild, clearing out Bobby Portis' salary just makes that rebuild that much more cleaner. You're cleaning out a veteran contract for a player that just doesn't fit you going into a rebuild. He's older, he's declining, all those type of things that happens there. And because it's also a player option, that's what you want to look at in regards to that too, right? This is a big that's proven to be able to contribute in the playoffs. He can score, he can rebound, and he does bring energy. But then also I think that it does make the trade a little bit harder when you go into trade saying, hey, listen, we want to attach Bobby Portis in any of these deals. Teams could look at that and say, well, we don't want to take Bobby Portis' contract out and take away even more assets of what we'll have to actually build around Giannis once we get him, right? So it could make that trade construction even a little bit more difficult. But at the end of the day, I definitely understand why the Milwaukee Bucks get this. This is where it becomes a spreadsheet nightmare for these teams and trying to balance all this. And this is why you could very well see this trade turn into a 3 or 4 team trade to eventually get this done. And I guess we'll see what's going to happen in regards to this. Now, with that said, this was a rumored 4-team trade that came out. I didn't want to make this its own topic. But this was a rumored 4-team trade that came out, is that the Heat get Giannis and Bobby Portis, with Dalton Knecht coming there as well. This is a 4-team trade. The Pistons are going to get Tyler Hero and Jake LaRavia. The Lakers get Miles Turner and Andre Jackson Jr., and the Milwaukee Bucks get Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez, Isaiah Stewart, Nikola Jovic, Marcus Sasser, Karis LeVert, Jared Vanderbilt, the number 13, the number 25, and 2 future firsts and pick swaps as well from the Miami Heat. That's a hell of a package back to if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, and some of those players even could be rerouted somewhere else if you need to. Just got to see what's going to happen in regards to this. But I do hope that we get a conclusion to this at the NBA draft. That's my hope at least. And we're going to see. The Giannis trade market is getting tighter. and the Milwaukee Bucks asking price is getting more ridiculous, and we just got to see. But I want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. Do you think the Milwaukee Bucks are right for asking for everything, or do you think they may start getting a little bit unrealistic? And if you are the New York Knicks, where are you trimming the salary at? Or are you just going to keep it all together and you be willing to pay the second tax apron to try to repeat as champions, as rare as that's happening now in the last decade? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything NBA and basketball related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.